what do you figure with this Grizzlies? I mean, Ja wasn't even that good, and they come back down 26. Frank.
I'm watching that game last night, and especially when one of Jay's Duke guys is in there, Tyus Jones and Brandon Clark and Desmond Bain, and I'm watching, and I'm thinking this is why they went 20-5 without Ja. They are a tough team, man. Ja's right. There's a lot of bite to that team, and that's why after Minnesota, won their playing game against the Clippers, which was a great win. They came from 10-0. They were down 10 in the fourth quarter. They did a lot of talking, and then you got to be able to back that up. And come on, guys, we've been around. We've seen some bad home playoff losses. I've been to a bunch of Madison Square Garden featuring the Knicks with Reggie Miller. You're up 26, and then you lose that lead, and then you go up 20 again. You got to win that game. They didn't even score 100 points in a game that they were up 26 and lost the game. I don't think I've ever seen that before. That is about as bad of a home loss as you can get. And I think the Grizzlies finally were the Grizzlies last night. I don't think they didn't play that well. I didn't really think in the first two games, but they came to life in the second half. They showed a lot of bite, that team.
Don't worry, Frank. You can just go home if you're Karl-Anthony Towns and have some wine, and everything will be fine. Everything will be totally fine.
Yeah, I think he's channeling. I think he thinks, well, that's what LeBron or maybe Kyrie would say after the game. You can't say something like that.
Jay's reaction exactly. That was exactly Jay's reaction. He thinks he's LeBron.
Yeah, I think and you know what? When LeBron says it, you say to yourself, okay, LeBron says that, but LeBron also goes to the final every year, and he's won, 4 titles. Like, at this stage of your career, when you've only won now it's 2 career playoff games, you can't say something like that. You got to provide a little bit more than that. Why you picked up that 5th foul when you did, that's just not good enough. I don't know, maybe he's struggling a little bit with the idea that it's, that Anthony Edwards has kind of become the guy on this team. But, you look at their home win that they had against the Clippers, he had a really rough game. And then you look at what happened last night. You're the leader of that team. I mean, you cannot allow your team to lose that game. And, I don't want to age myself here, but I've been at a bunch of games with Patrick Ewing. If Patrick Ewing played like that in a game that the Knicks lost by 26, it would be splashed all over the back pages for a few days about Patrick Ewing.
Frank Isola, Yes Network, Sirius XM, NBA Radio, joining us here on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max. Frank, speaking of a big-time player in a big-time moment, I'm watching Golden State and Denver play last night, and I know that Jokic had 37 and 15. And those numbers, to people that wake up and see it in the box score, they look tremendous, right? But there were plays down the stretch, a turnover to Aaron Gordon on a lob pass. He got his pocket ripped by Draymond Green down the stretch as well. And I'm looking at it saying, doesn't an MVP player get you at least one win in a series like this to create a gentleman's sweep? Like, they're going to get swept 4-0. Like, isn't that the impact that Jokic has, or the lack thereof, in this game down the stretch? Isn't that concerning about the MVP?
No, I think that's fair. And didn't they get swept last year? So they've lost a lot of playoff games in a row here, and he's got to be able to make better plays, especially at home. A lot of that does have to fall on him, and I think clearly I think it's a 2-man race with the MVP. The boat's already in, but it's Jokic and obviously Joel Embiid. And look at the way that Embiid has played. Embiid had his best moment probably in the playoffs the other night against Toronto with that huge shot that he made. And here's Jokic about to get swept out of the playoffs. They did have a lead in the fourth quarter. He had a couple of miscues down the stretch. It needs to be better. When you are that kind of player, we hold all of them, whether it's, former MVPs like Kevin Durant and it's LeBron, you're held to a different standard, and Jokic has not met that standard in the playoffs.
Frank, we talk about Jokic and the standard in the playoffs, but look, there's a guy at the Nets and Kevin Durant. They're down 0-2 or 0-0 or however you want to say it nowadays to the Celtics. Does this fall on Kevin Durant's shoulders as a player because he hasn't necessarily shown up in these games?
I think it does. I heard the great Jay Williams, I think it was last week, you talking about Kyrie. I think you called him, maybe the best offensive guard of all time or the most talented. A lot of us have called Kevin Durant maybe the best offensive player for a guy his size in the NBA, and those guys went 1 for 17. So you start naming all the great duos in the NBA, whether it's, Magic and Kareem, Shaq and Kobe, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen. If those guys go 1 for 17 on the road, you're just not going to win the game. So we could talk about adjustments. And should Goran Dragic have been back in the game a little bit earlier? What are the Nets doing offensively in the fourth quarter? They're not moving the ball. Your two best players went 1 for 17, and Kevin Durant was 0 for 10. Kevin Durant is too good of a player. And in that moment, the team needed you. And I think, if you look at game one, on that final possession Boston. You know, when they grabbed the rebound, all 5 Celtics touched the ball and it ended with the Tatum layup at the buzzer. You know, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving were caught ball watching there on that play. They did not make a play in the crucial moment of the game. And then in the fourth quarter, when the team needs them, and I don't think their shots for the most part were terrible. I mean, to me, they missed a lot of makeable shots. But Tatum and Brown started facilitating a little bit more. The ball was moving for the Boston Celtics. All these teams in the NBA seem to be better when the ball moves. Yet when they're losing, it seems like they get caught up in this thing where, all right, now I have to go one-on-one. I have to isolate, and that never seems to work out.
Should we see Ben Simmons on Saturday if he's ready to go, Frank, to give him some defensive help?
I said that yesterday. I don't understand how you would know you're going to be ready Monday, but you can't be ready Saturday. I don't get that. Like if the Chiefs had a playoff game on a Monday, there was a Monday playoff game this year. Can you imagine if Patrick Mahomes said, "Well, I don't know if I could play. If we play Saturday, I won't be able to play, but 2 days later I could play." And that's football. I don't understand how you could be out since June 20th and know you could play in Game 4, but not in Game 3. It doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe they're looking at it as if they win Game 3, there's a little less pressure on Ben Simmons. But, I mean, you guys tell me, can he be more than just a situational player at this point? You're going to have him in the game. You're going to have him in the game late in a close game where he'd be in a position to get fouled. It's almost unfair to him. He hasn't played since June 20th. And the last time he played, I think it was 15 or 14 or 45. He went from the free throw line. He didn't want to shoot. And when he had to shoot from the free throw line, he couldn't make free throws. I don't know how you're going to stick him in to all of a sudden a high pressure. But now you're in situations, the next 2 games, it doesn't matter if the Nets win Saturday. Monday's still, for the most part, a must-win. I don't know how you could stick him in there and expect really to get much out of him.
I'm with you, Frank.